Hi there, VC. It's Steve Whitty. It's Sunday morning. Sun is shining. It means I've got enough light to do it without using any electricity. This is all great. It all feels. This week has felt really positive. I don't know how it's felt for you, particularly in the UK. It's been rather. I think everyone's feeling a little bit more positive about things. We'll come back to that later. This is a recent find video, February, as it's the last day of the month. When preparing it, I suddenly realised I'd probably got a lot more than I'd thought, but various new releases, some eBay, and some records that were given to me. So, without further ado, let's start. And the first album is Celeste. This is Not Your Muse. This came out earlier this year. Celeste, British stroke American R&B singer. She's been compared to Amy Winehouse, Billie Holiday, and Adele. Yeah, this is really good. This is a really good album. Got to number one. This is an Amazon signed copy. It's really a good album. It's not. It's really, I think, quite a low key album, sounding album, but really good. It's well worth checking. She's well worth checking out. Yeah, excellent. Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers, the band's 11th album, but probably most importantly, it was the comeback album for the Mark II lineup. Released in 1984, I think really had some really good moments that could be compared to the classic Mark II lineup. The opening track, Knocking at Your Back Door, Perfect Strangers, was a good song. However, this album sort of highlighted sort of like the potential splits that were going to come up. Mark II previously, it was very much band collaborations, and it was sort of credited as such. But on this album, there's only one track, Nobody's Home. Both Ian Gillan and Roger Glover wanted that to come back, but Richie Blackmore said no, whoever puts it on is going to get the sole credit or whatever. And it stayed like that until Richie Blackmore left the band, and then reverted back to songwriting credits. Co-produced by Roger Glover and Deep Purple. Yeah, I think this is a really good album. It's probably not there with the classic stuff, but it stands as a good Mark II album. Next, this is from the Psychotron's online crate digs. Renaissance, their debut album, released in 1969. Amongst others in the band, Renaissance really were formed by Keith Relf and Jim McCarthy, fresh out of the Yardbirds. It also featured Keith's sister Jane. And to carry on with the Yardbird connection, it was produced by Paul Samuel Smith, who was becoming a high producer at Island. It's on a Pink Island label. It's a original pressing. I got it quite not a bad deal because there's water damage on the cover. It's a really nice sounding album. It's certainly totally different to what's out. What Ralph had put and McCarthy had put out with Yardbirds. It was totally a sort of 180 turn. I found myself this week watching that lineup of Renaissance do a performance on a German program called Beat Club. They've got a YouTube channel well worth checking out. Some really vintage performances from 60s up to mid late 70s. Yeah. Sadly, this lineup wasn't to last. Ralph and McCarthy quit the following year, band, and quit performing. which was a shame. But Renaissance, if you're aware, did carry on from going on from strength to strength. Booker White, Memphis Hot Shots. This came out in 1968. This is a release on the Blue Horizon label. Album produced by Mike Vernon, co-produced by executive producer Seymour Stein. This is just a good blues album. Booker White. I think Mike Vernon was doing a lot of trips to Chicago and sort of connecting with a lot of the old blues guys. I mean, this was recorded in Memphis, but I don't know how it charted. There's not much information about it, but I do know it's a really good sounding album. An eBay purchase. This is Doctors of Madness, Sons of Survival, their third album, released in 1978 on the Polydor label. Just after this album came out, Urban Blitz, who was the, if I can remember, he was the violins and electric guitar player. He quit the band. He got temporarily replaced by Dave Vanian as well, because he also did vocals out the Damned when the Damned had initially split up. This album sort of like points to that punk edge. They were I've described them before and showed the album. They are sort of one of those missing links between glam and punk, and really harsh sounding albums. Really good album. It completes those three albums in my collection. And I got this sort of for a real snip on eBay. Right. Oh, let's have a slurp. Throat's drying up. Right. Next album, I think it's got the potential to be an absolute classic. This is Arlo Parks, Collapsed in Sunbeams. Released again in 2021, in the end of January. Same week as Celeste. It got to number 3 in the UK charts. This album just strips in so many directions. Indie pop, indie folk, neo soul, bedroom pop. I've heard it be described. Influences include Sylvia Plath and Joni Mitchell, so you can get sort of drift where this is coming from. This is a very good album. It's a sort of album that you play on a Sunday. Actually, really is good. It's got a great voice. Collapsed in Sunbeams. It's so far. Okay, we're only 2 months into the year, but this is the record that's coming as my album of the year so far, and it comes in quite a nice deep red vinyl. There we go. Excellent album. It's, if you haven't checked, I'll check it out on Spotify, but it's excellent. And you can tell I haven't thrown this together very well, because I mentioned Dave Vanian with the Doctors of Madness, and this is the Damned Anything an eBay purchase. The 7th studio album came out in 1986, reached top 40. Probably a good while before the Damned album-wise would hit the trouble the charts. Line-up at that time, you've got on the left Roman Jug on guitar and keyboards, Dave Vanian, Rapscabies, and Brim Merrick, who was the bass player at that time. The album, one of those albums that has, get it the right way, that's the pop-up of the band. You get the feeling from reading up about it, the band were not particularly enamoured. They felt that they would sort of rushed into this. There are some good tracks. The title track's good. They're doing a reasonable version of A Love's Alone Again, or which was hit, probably the last hit single for them. Psychomania, Dulce Decorum is also on there. Sort of like really nice. I mean, the Damned at that period, they'd just come off that big hit, Eloise, and I think the record company wanted to cash in. You know, they were hot. Sort of like the goth, I wouldn't say metal, but there was certainly a gothy type, but the look was a little bit on the metal side. An album I've been longing to get hold of, a vinyl copy. Catch a Fire, originally came out by the Wailers in 1973. It was the fifth studio album for the Wailers, but this, more importantly, it was the first one they recorded for Island Records. The term Catch a Fire means burning hell. Recorded in Jamaica. Basically, how this album came about was that they'd been recording for Johnny Nash, and he sort of pulled out right at the last minute, and the band was sort of left stranded a little bit. So Chris Blackwell at Island says, well, here's some money, go back to Jamaica, make an album, and come bring it back to us. Now everyone at Island thought he was mad, because they thought, well, you'll never see that money again. But lo and behold, Bob Marley appeared with his tapes, and lo and behold, there's an album. This is Catch a Fire. The version that was released in the UK was sort of like overdubbed and had bits re-recorded just to make it more palatable for Western audiences. The CD reissue, you get both versions, this version and the original recorded version. Obviously, this is a reissue, because the original was the Zippo lighter, flip it over, pull the record out. Those now cost silly money. If you come across one, you just snap it up, and if it's a good price. But the reissue then obviously became Bob Marley and the Wailers. Talking the music itself, you've got Concrete Jungle, Stir It Up is on here, Kinky Reggae, Slave Driver. Absolute wonderful classic album, and for a lot of people, introduction to reggae. Suzi Quatro, second album, Quatro, released in 1974. This sort of mixture of originals and covers, rock and roll covers, such as Move It, Cliff Richard hit single, Hit the Road Jack, Trouble is on here, Keep a Knocking, Little Richard's Keep a Knocking. Interestingly, the opening track, the Wild One, was a single, but on here it's a bit of a slower version, slowed down a little bit, and I think it's all the better for it. Actually, it's a really good. For what it is, it's a good rock and roll album, and that's what Suzi Quatro was all about. There's a band. Wouldn't want to argue with the band. Now, a few weeks ago, I watched John Downing's 6-inch Pianist. He did a video on Norman Whitfield Productions, and one of the albums he showed. Well, I streamed a lot of the albums that he showed, and I really enjoyed listening to it. And one of the albums was this. I got this from a Psychotron online crate dig. The Undisputed Truth, Face to Face. This was their second album, released in 1972. Let's see, you find this on the Gordy label. Produced by Norman Whitfield, as I mentioned. Now, probably the standout track here is the last track on side 2, which is a 9-minute version of Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Most of the songs on this album he produced for the Temptations, but I think the beauty of Norman Whitfield was that he would do different versions for different arrangements for different groups. He might produce the songs, and you keep producing the same songs, but he'll do them in different arrangements. I think Edwin Starr on the Influence album has got, it's another classic, great example of that, where Whitfield just took songs he produced and just did totally different arrangements. Another slurp. Here's a couple of comps I'm going to show you. This again came from the online crate dig. This is All Good Clean Fun, which came out in 1971. It's a comp released by United Artists, and it's basically all their bands of that ilk at the time. So you've got Gypsy, Sugarloaf, Groundhogs, Canned Heat, Brinsley Schwartz, Man, Help Yourself, Sweet Pain, Hawkwind, Ernie Graham, Eric Burden and War, If, Colin Scott, Cochise, John Lee Hooker and Canned Heat, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Reg King, Morning, BB Blunder, Alan Taylor and Amundul 2. But this is a beautiful, I mean this is 50 years old this year, but this is absolutely beautifully packaged. It's like an envelope. Be careful how I do this so I don't break it. So it comes like an envelope. And then you've got the booklet, which gives a brief outline of the bands. Even better, if I do this, it's still got the original inners in great nick, and outlining the band's albums that are on United Artists at that time. And it's a great comp. I do love my comps, particularly comps from the 70s. A lot of stuff, it gets me vinyl access to a lot of stuff that, let's be honest, if I tried to find it on albums, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. And anyway, it's a good introduction to some bands I've never heard before. Let's put this back. There we go. So another comp I found, again on an online crate dig, is Backtrack 1. This is, if you're not aware, these are comps that were put out by the Track label, and for the princely sum of 99p. And it's mainly, there's a whole series of them, mainly featuring Who, Hendrix. But here, the reason it attracted me, you've got here Walk on Gilded Splinters by Marshall Hunt. You've also got Desdemona by John's Children. You've got Follow Me by Heir Apparent. And It's Been a Long Time, Andy Ellison. Now these are songs, if you buy them as singles, try and buy them as singles, cost an arm and a leg. This only cost me a few quid. That's the reason that attracted me to this comp. It's also got Who and Hendrix, yeah, and Arthur Brown. So yeah, it's a good little comp. These are good little comps to find, particularly when you do the albums. They did albums, and these were normally, they do stereo versions of the album, but they did sometimes they did the covers, and they had so much of the original pressing. They put the original pressing in for some of these albums. The Who springs to mind. Rufus featuring Chaka Khan, Rufusized, 1974. The third album, second album released in 1974, top 10 in the US charts. I got pulled in this. I belong to a Facebook group called the Bastards of Eclectic Taste, Music Taste, or the Bastardos, as we're known. And sometimes some of the guy who runs it, Harvey, he does a DJ set, and he played this, and I just played a track from this, and I just loved it, and I just went on eBay and managed to snare me up a copy for a few quid, and it's a real great album. This is this time where Chaka Khan was starting to get more prominent. That's why featuring Chaka Khan, and I think this caused a few problems within the band. They always thought themselves as a band, but you can see here Chaka Khan at the front, inside it's Chaka Khan, and even on these photos at the back it's Chaka Khan. But it's a great funky record. This is absolutely wonderful. I'm glad I picked this up. Rufus used to tour a lot in the UK years ago. Next, changing tact. Roots, the Crack. Debut album released in 1979 on the Virgin label. This is an original pressing. Features on here, hit singles, Babylon's Burning, and Something That I Said. It's a good fusion of punk and reggae. Jar Wars, which was another single, which wasn't a hit, but it's a great track. I think maybe because it was a bit too long, but he also dealt with police brutality. This really good. You know, you got Dope for Guns, Sus. Last track on here, Human Punk, was recorded at the Marquee on the 19th of July 1979. And what I liked about that is it's Malcolm Owen basically getting the audience, members of the audience at the front row at the Marquee shouting Human Punk down the microphone. Sadly, it already played for the Ruts, where Malcolm Owen passed away from a heroin addiction. Ruts, if you're not aware, were one of Henry Rollins' favourite bands, and when when Paul Fox was terminally dying of cancer, they organised a sort of like a benefit gig, and the Ruts and Henry Rollins flew over and he did the vocals. He was that keen. He really loved the band. Another record I was given, this is Blind Willie Johnson, Praise God I'm Satisfied. This is a 70s American album released on the Yazoo label. I don't know much about Blind Willie Johnson, but when I read up about him, I thought, blimey, this is brutal. Apparently, the reason he was blinded by his stepmother. Let me give that. He was born in 1897, died in 1945. He was blinded by his stepmother. His stepmother apparently was confronted about her infidelities, and she threw a solution of lye water into his eyes, which took away his sight. That's one of the versions that's supposed to happen. Another version says he looked at a solar eclipse directly into a solar eclipse, which blinded him. As it says, Praise God, I'm Satisfied. This is very much a blues gospel album. Jesus made me make up my dying bed. Most of these recordings, they come from between 1927 and 1930. It's a good listen. It's probably something I wouldn't have checked out myself unless it was given to me. But it's a really nice album. Another slot. This is turning into a long video. Now for us a bit of soul to soul. Not that soul to soul, but soul to soul, as in a soundtrack to a film. Now, this album features Roberta Flack, Eddie Harris, Les McCann, Wilson Pickett, Staple Sisters, Ike Tina Turner. Who else? The Voices of East Harlem. This was released on the Atlantic label, 1971. This was to celebrate. There was a concert held in Accra, Ghana, on the 6th of March 1971. It was called the Soul to Soul Festival. And a whole lot of artists came over and did a concert with local artists as well. Produced by Tom Dale. Probably one of the most astonishing tracks is Roberta Flackster's song called Freedom Song, and this was actually recorded in one of the dungeons of the old slave fortress at the Cape Coast in Ghana. So really remarkable. It's there we go. Let's see the back cover there. Absolutely really good live album for itself. Right, I've only got a couple more to show you. Now, I can never pronounce this name. So Samanda, or whatever, how you pronounce it. This is their debut album, released in 1970. This has just been reissued. The name actually means dove in Calypso, and hence why you've got the dove there on top of the raster. The band were all immigrants to the UK from the West Indies, from various parts of the West Indies. There you go. This is an absolute wonderful album of funk, soul, reggae, rock, African music, calypso, and jazz. The band themselves called it Naya Rock. The band lasted till 1974 and released 3 albums. I think the second album was a Record Store Day released a few years ago. So it might be unlikely we'll get that reissued. Absolutely wonderful listen. I recommend you check it out on Spotify before, if you want to purchase. And the final album I'm going to show you, this came to me on Friday. This is PJ Harvey, Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. Came out in 2000. Her 5th album. More importantly, it was a Mercury Prize winning album as well. This explores the theme of love. So you've got things like This Is Love, Good Fortune. But it's also, you can tell from the cover, this is the cover's pictures taken in New York City. Harvey was expressing her love for the city at that time as well. This is considered one of the best albums. I think it's the most direct sounding album that she did at that time. The songs were very, how can I say, as I say, direct I think is probably the word. Some great songs. Good Fortune, which was the lead single off here. Then you got the Horse Hustle and the Hustler's Whore. This is absolutely wonderful. It was a co-production with Rob Ellis and Mick Harvey as well. Wonderful, and it's part of the PJ Harvey reissues, and it's well worth checking out. I'm looking forward to the next one. So there you go, VC. Those are my recent finds for February. As I said at the start of the week, it feels very positive at the moment. If you're not aware, those that if it's over, but we've been given a timetable for coming out of lockdown. Schools go back next Monday. Sports, outdoor sports for exercise is end of March. After Easter, non-essential shops are opening and gyms are opening. Various bits and bobs. Hopefully, if all goes to plan, we don't have any spikes. June the 21st is when they look like social distancing measures. It's all on the back of the vaccine. I'm waiting for my letter to come. It should come very shortly, I think. The way things are going, and festivals have started saying, "Yeah, we're going for it. We're going to go for it." Reading and Leeds announced it last week, and the tickets just went like that. There's going to be such a clamour for live gigs. Billy Bragg has announced his tour for October, November. I've got Bearded Theory in September, which was from last year. And I'm looking at the Moseley Jazz and Funk or the Moseley Folk Festival. Maybe just do one of the days there. So there's a lot now to look forward to. I think this week everyone's started to feel a lot more positive that we're coming. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. So VC, if you like what you see and you're new to the channel, click on the subscribe button. More the merrier. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. And feel free to leave a comment. I will get back to you. So VC, whatever you get up to today, and if the sun's still shining, make sure you get some time outside. Take care of yourselves. Keep spinning. More importantly, keep on smiling.